Today's story is about one of the most effective fighters of World War II who might have the largest impact of any single member of that conflict. He helped the Allies defeat Germany and Japan by playing key roles in the Battle of the Bulge and the landing at Iwo Jima. He infiltrated places that nobody thought possible, from Japanese tunnels to German command posts and even Joseph Stalin's bathroom, and he did it all without firing a single bullet. He was everywhere and nowhere. His name was Kilroy, and he's a meme. What? Hello everyone, today I'm telling the story of Kilroy, a small doodle that was found all over the battlefields of World War II and played a pivotal role in the morale of Allied soldiers, which helped them defeat the axis of evil and completely change the course of history, and is often credited as the first meme. So if you want to hear about great grandpa posting on the Nazis, we're going to get into it, and thank you for watching. Now, tracing the origin of Kilroy is a little bit difficult because the final image and saying is actually a combination of an American saying and a British drawing. Although the exact origin is unknown, it's believed that the original artist could have been a radio operator due to the drawing looking similar to an RLC circuit which is used in radio tuning. Or he was just an electrician since it looks like an omega symbol, which in electricity stands for resistance. Or it was just a British cartoonist who came up with a funny doodle. Or it was an instructor at a Royal Air Force base who used to draw it on his chalkboard. All of these theories and more exist as to where the drawing actually came from, but just like the cool S seen on notebooks from the 1980s to my notebooks in 2014, nobody knows for sure where it came from. They just know that they had a friend or cool cousin that drew it and they wanted to draw it too. What we do know for sure is that the doodle took off in the British military and the public, seen with the phrase, "What, no sugar?" or "What, no bread?" and was used as a way for the British to complain about the shortages and rationing that plagued Britain in the lead up and start of the war. At this point in time, the doodle was just simply referred to as Mr. Chad and was really only used as a funny way to complain about the current state of affairs in Britain. But that would all change after America entered the war. Now, if you don't remember, Britain and Europe started fighting in World War II in late 1939 after Germany invaded Poland, but America wouldn't join until after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. In spite of this, pretty much everyone knew that America was eventually going to get involved, as we were already sending tons of supplies to help the Allies fight the war. And sending tons of supplies and eventually tons of troops requires tons of ships. Enter Four Rivers Shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts, which goes to work building ships as fast as they can, including battleships and troop transports. Now, when it comes to building anything for the military, there are certain standards and inspections that have to be done in order for a piece of equipment to go out and be used in service. And ships are heavily scrutinized because, they need to keep water out and not sink. This meant that every single rivet on a ship had to be inspected and signed off by a rivet inspector who used to put a little initial or name next to the rivets in crayon or marker. Unfortunately, your great-grandparents' favorite president, for some reason, FDR was in charge of things, meaning that the economy was in the toilet known as the Great Depression, and people would do anything to make a little extra cash. The way that riveters would make that extra cash came down to how they were paid. See, they were paid for every rivet they put on the ship. So what those dastardly riveters would do is simply erase the marks from one inspector and get another one to come through and sign off, effectively getting paid twice for the same job. This was a practice that was all too familiar to an inspector named James Kilroy, who came up with a clever way to keep those dirty riveters from scanning the shipyard. He took a heavier-duty oil crayon and inscribed the words, "Kilroy was here," on the areas that he inspected. This meant that the riveters couldn't erase it and therefore couldn't scam the shipyard, but what it also meant was that it stuck around. Now, normally, inspection markings are painted over whenever a ship is delivered after completion, but with the ramping up of production for the war effort, certain areas that either didn't require paint or were often hidden out of sight, they were just left unpainted. This meant that once American servicemen were packed into these ships like sardines, they eventually found the markings, taking them as a strange sign of good luck that their ship was protected from the enemy by this unknown Kilroy, and that maybe, just maybe, he'd protect them during the fight too. Sometime shortly after American troops arrived in Europe, the saying Kilroy was here and the Mr. Chad Doodle fused into the most common form of the meme, the phrase over the top of the bald man looking over the wall. From here, it spread all over the Western Front, being inscribed on walls in destroyed buildings, painted on bombs that were dropped by allies, or even etched onto vehicles by maintenance crews as they made their way deeper and deeper into enemy territory. He was at the Battle of the Bulge, where he was painted on the inside of a barn door in Bastogne with the words, "Kilroy was stuck here," referencing how long it took the Allies to finally push the Germans back and win that battle. He was even present at Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne operation in world history, found on the wings of a glider used by the British with the phrase, "What, no engines?" Kilroy was so prolific in Europe, in fact, that there are rumors that his existence made it to the highest levels of German intelligence and maybe even to Hitler himself, believed to be some sort of high-level spy that was operating during the war. If that's true, it means that valuable time and resources were expended by the German military trying to locate a spy that was really just a drawing by some E4 trying to be funny, and it's a reminder to anyone in the military now that your chain of command might think that your memes are a waste of time, but you could very easily be psyoping the enemy into thinking you're a spy. Keep posting the memes. And it wasn't just Germany that Kilroy had this effect on. There were reports of Japanese finding Kilroy inside tunnels and on missiles from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima and being just as confused about the strange doodle. And my favorite story about Kilroy came from the Potsdam Conference in 1945. This is where Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union met to decide what would be done with Germany and Europe after the war was over. Reportedly, Joseph Stalin, the man with the second most famous World War II mustache, was using his private bathroom when he stormed out and screamed at one of his aides, demanding an answer to one question: who is Kilroy? So this whole time, we've seen the places that Kilroy has been, but where did he go? Well, after the war was over, he could be found in just as many odd places. Reports of Kilroy on the insides of iron girders on bridges and skyscrapers all across the country, or on the backs of vehicles driving the nation's highways. Kilroy was never far from war, however. From the jungles of Korea and Vietnam to the deserts of Iraq, it seemed wherever American soldiers went, Kilroy managed to beat them there. And now that we've seen all the places Kilroy managed to go, what does it mean? And why was he so prevalent across the globe with American and British troops? Well, there's something you need to know about war. War is hell is a common phrase that has found its way into popular culture based on the fact that human conflict often produces the worst things a person can witness. Meaning that the men who go out and fight in a war have to not only be tough, but also motivated and as comfortable as the situation can allow. This is often referred to as morale. Things like cigarettes, chocolate, and even ice cream and Coca-Cola were used during World War II to boost the morale of soldiers. And this is where I think the true power of Kilroy comes in. Did Kilroy being painted on the inside of troop transports actually protect them from being sunk? No. Plenty of ships were sunk by the Germans in World War II. But what actually mattered was they thought it did. Just like a lucky jersey or a good luck charm, it's not the thing itself that protects you, but your belief in it that does. And when you're facing the most destructive war in human history, you need as much of that as you can get. And it worked. Many of the men who reported seeing Kilroy stated that it gave them a sense of hope, a feeling like they could move forward and continue to fight. Imagine going through what you feel like is the worst day of your life. You may have won the battle, but it's taken a toll and you're ready to give up, only to see that the town you fought so hard to capture has already been visited by Kilroy. Well, if Kilroy was here, it means he's moved on. He moved forward to the next objective, the next town, and the next fight, pushing the enemy further and further back. And if he's able to make it through and keep going, well, maybe you can too. And that's what's so incredible about this story and what I think anyone can take away from it. Even if you aren't a soldier or a sailor, we all go through hard times and we always seem to think that we're alone, that nobody's ever gone through this before, but that's a lie. Kilroy and many others were here before you, and they made it out. So can you. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support me, links to my Patreon and my Beer and Books fund will be down in the description, and I will see you in the next story. The end. Oh, and one other thing. If you're ever in Washington, D.C., you should visit the World War II Memorial because there are 2 Kilroys hidden on the monument as a way to immortalize his importance to the men he fought alongside, and I just think that's a really cool detail. See you later.